So yesterday I have made this beautiful peacock and I have requested all of you to join me today so we all can paint this together. So I'm going to start painting it with you guys now. So let's start. So I am using acrylic colors by Fevicryl. You can use watercolors also. It's completely up to you how you want to give the shading in your peacock. So I'm going to start with the shade of yellow. So let's begin. I'm going to start with painting the peacock first. So I'm going to start with a little portions of the peacock feather. I'm going to add a little water. Take a bit shade of green. We want both the colors to mix up very well. Again, I'm going to start with a little shade of yellow. I'm just doing 2 to 3 palette, parts in one time. I don't want the color to dry up and then it won't mix up very well. Again, a little bit of yellow. Before we give the final stroke of green. So you can see how beautifully the green and the yellow color is combining with each other. Now I'm going to take a good thick coat of yellow and add the details, color the details now. You have to be very, very slow. Some portion I'm going to leave white only, for example the center one. So you can see how different it is looking now. Now let's add a little more yellow color to the jewelry here. Since I have used a waterproof pen, so you can see the ink is not smudging up. If you use any other gel pen, there are a good chances that once you add water, it will spread out. Just enjoy the entire process, go very slow. just by adding a little yellow color. So you can see now we're going to color the beak also yellow. This is a little unconventional. Generally it's red. Most of the time we see it red. But let's play with some colors. I'm going to first try and finish whatever I need to color with yellow, so I can move on to my next color. I'm just adding a little shades. I'm not adding too much of water. Just enough to give it a smooth, stroke on my paints. I'm going to add a little bit red, but later on. First I want to give the base coat. Again, focus on all the very minute details possible. Don't try and rush up. Just focus on all the slightest, smallest of the details. I'm going to add a little more green and yellow combination. So let's add a little more yellow, but this time it's going to be a little flowy yellow. Just in the center. Now take a good amount of water plus the green color, and now I'm going to add just smudge it a bit. So you got a little yellowish green shade. So I wanted a little lighter tone. So got the right shade. Now let's add a little bit here also. a lot of yellow, a little bit of water, and a little bit of green. Just adding a little more yellow in the center. Here we are adding a lot of greens and yellows. Now let's move on to the next shade. So we have to be again very cautious whenever we are using the next shade. I'm going to just take another brush and let's try some more shades. This time I'm going to use a little bit shade of white and red. This is going to be a little bit pink color. So let's make it. So I hope you're enjoying this entire session. Do let me know in the comment section if you like this artwork, if you want me to paint such more videos. For this one we really need a lot of white color and a little bit of pink. Let's start. Let's start from the top. Just a little outline I'm going to start with. Let's start with the lotus flower. Just outline and fill in the color. We come back and shade it with red. Now let's move on to another part. This time I'm going to go through this part. Just give it an outline first. A thick coat of paint. Now we're going to just merge the color. Add a little bit water. If there is any kind of you feel like that there's a lot of water, just wait. Either wipe it out with a tissue or just wait for it to dry a bit before you start working. So how beautiful the pink color is looking. It's completely looking different. Once this paint dries up, we are going to add a little more whiter shade in the center. I'm just adding a little bit of water and spreading my color. Just adding a little bit white since I have to paint the base. So I'm not going to give a good thick paint, otherwise it will become patchy. So a very light coat. Meanwhile, I'm going to absorb it too. So now carefully just wipe it a bit. Here we go. Okay, now let's move on to the next part, which we are going to paint. Again, it's going to be a shade of pink and white. So let's start. This is going to be this time the upper part. I'm going to start painting here. Okay, now we're done with pink. Now let's move on to the next one, which is going to be a lighter shade of blue. Again, we will be needing the help of our white color. Okay, let's keep that. I have got a special white color which is going to be a very light shade of blue. So I'm going to add a lot more white to it to get the perfect shade what I want. a little bit of water. See how soothing and beautiful this white color and light shade of blue looks. Just a very lighter shade of blue. So this is the ideal color. Now let's add to the peacock crown. आपको कोशिश करनी है कि आप ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा वाइट कलर लो एंड बहुत ही कम शेड ऑफ ब्लू, बिकॉज इफ यू वांट अ वेरी लाइट शेड ऑफ ब्लू, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा वाइट एंड देन बहुत कम ब्लू. सो आप देख सकते हो कि बहुत ही लाइटर शेड ऑफ ब्लू मैं बनाने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ यहाँ पर. एंड बहुत ध्यान से कलर करना है. कोशिश करनी है कि हम विद इन द लाइन्स ही कलर करें. Whoever is joining today and watching this video, do give it a try. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. You can watch more such videos I'll be posting on regular basis, so you can have a look at them, learn. If you have any comments, leave it in this. You can DM me, you can message me, or you can just post your comment. So here we are. Now let's add more shades. I'm going to add a little more shades. I'm going to add a little darker shade of blue in here. So in this one only, a bit of it. Especially on the corners. I'm going to just let's get back to the color, which is going to be, I'm going to use again white, and this time I'm going to use a shade of purple. So let's begin. Again, in this one I need a lot of white color and a very little purple color. So let's start. Take good amount of white color, and first I'm going to paint the feather. So I'm going to just paint it around the beak. I'm going to just take a bit of purple just to make sure I'm doing it the right tone. So you can see I've got a very light shade of purple. Just to give it an outline, to define it actually. Just gonna smudge it a bit. Here we are. Now let's move on to the main body. Again, we need a lot of water, very little purple. Just going to blend it on the corners. Need to work very quick, otherwise it will become patchy. Now I'm going to take a little rough brush. I'm going to just add and smudge white. Careful with the white color. Whenever you're working with a thick brush, make sure you work nicely on the corner especially. But everything, it's looking a little patchy. I'm gonna just give it a covering, another coat. Let it dry up before I move on to the next one. So you can see how extensively we have shaded the main peacock body, how beautiful and different it looks now. So a lot of layers are required. We have to start with a little darker shade, then go with a little whiter, and again finish off with a little darker shade on the corner especially. So we are done here. Now let's move on to the back again, yellow color to add a little more details to it. We have used this blue color. I'm going to use again a tint of blue. I'm just going to add a little white to it because it was coming out a little dark that time. So I'm just going to add a little white, and we have to make sure this entire color is nicely dried up before we move our hand. Otherwise there are good chances of spreading the color. Coloring the base is one of the toughest part in this. It's your choice completely if you want to keep it white or if you want to color the background. I choose to color the background. And I'm going to do a little darker, a little mixed shade of orange color. So you can see that this is a fusion green color. So the amalgamation of this green and the lighter green shade is looking absolutely stunning. So in the outer layer, I'm going to mix a little bit of white. I don't want a darker shade now. I want to give it a whiter tone. Okay, so now let's add this same color. Mixing a tone of white. I'm going to again use this green color and yellow color because I think I love the combination. But before I use that, I'm going to just use a little more of this shade onto the crown of my peacock. But for this one, I'm going to use the darker shade. Very carefully, just use only the darker shade. Here we are. Now let's color the dots. Now let's get back to the color of green and yellow. So now let's move on to the bigger part. So on the top part again I'm going to use the shade of green. So now we're done with this one. We'll just wait for another 5-7 minutes for the paint to dry up. Let's quickly go back and come back. I'm going to just join it again.